In 2025, I reviewed 29 restaurants in Paris, from classic bistro to iconic brasseries and more ambitious dining rooms. Each of them was evaluated using exactly the same grading system across 6 criteria with no adjustment after the fact. So today's video is not about opinions or trends, but about comparison. I'll first show you the full ranking table with all 29 restaurants and their scores, then I'll highlight the best starter, the best main, and the best dessert I had this year. After that, we'll take a closer look at the 3 restaurants that made it onto the podium. And finally, I'll give you direct access to the 10 full reviews that, according to my grading system, truly stood out in 2025. Before we look at the results, let me briefly explain how this ranking works. All 29 restaurants were evaluated using the same 6 criteria. First, the quality of the food. And recently, I decided to give this criterion a coefficient of 2, simply because food quality is, in my opinion, the most important element in a restaurant experience. The other criteria are service, atmosphere, the setting and decor, the location in Paris, and finally price and value for money. Each restaurant is graded on all these criteria, and the total score you see here is the result of that exact same system applied consistently throughout the year. This means that expensive restaurants are not automatically favored and cheaper ones are not penalized. Everything is about balance and overall experience. So here they are, the 29 restaurants I reviewed in 2025, ranked alphabetically for the moment. And just to be clear, these are not the only restaurants I ate at this year. There were others, but some experiences were simply too uninteresting to justify a full review here on the channel. So this ranking only includes restaurants that I felt were worth your time, whether for good reasons or sometimes for the wrong ones. And now they are ranked, from my best overall experience to the least enthusiastic one. And here are my 10 favorite restaurants of 2025, all with a score above 17 out of 20. When it comes to the best starter of the year, I'm sorry to say I couldn't decide. So this year, there's a tie. A tie between a pure bistro recipe made extraordinary by a chef's talent and another starter that, in my opinion, fully justifies the Michelin star of the restaurant where I had it. So which one would you choose? The sea bream carpaccio with lemon and olive oil at l'Atelier Robuchon or the pâté en croûte with foie gras at Au Vieux Comptoir? There's no tie when it comes to the best main course of the year. I had many excellent dishes in 2025, but one truly stood out, the one that left the strongest impression and delivered the most pleasure. The gigot d'agneau at Le Train Bleu. On its own, it's already a great dish, but paired with the Michel Guérard style potato gratin, it becomes an absolute must. Until the very last restaurant I tested this year, I was absolutely certain about the best dessert of 2025. Then this fantastic Île Flottante at Brasserie Lippe made me hesitate for a moment. But no, even though that dessert was truly heavenly, my clear preference still goes elsewhere. To this not very good looking, yet absolutely outstanding rice pudding at Au Vieux Comptoir. Creamy, caramelized, and packed with flavor. A dessert that proves looks really aren't everything. Number 3 on the podium goes to Le Jardin Saint-Germain. A great location in the Saint-Germain neighborhood, an extremely friendly and efficient service, and overall excellent food, with a perfectly cooked sea bass fillet as a highlight. And to finish, a thoughtful touch from the chef, who offered us some excellent popcorn at the end of the meal, making the experience even more memorable. At number 2, just shy of the top spot, is a vegetarian restaurant, Bonnard, right in the heart of the Marais neighborhood. And even though I'm a meat lover, the vegetarian cuisine here is truly outstanding. The service is warm and attentive, the atmosphere is very enjoyable, and the overall experience is remarkably convincing. I have to admit that with food this good, I could definitely see myself eating vegetarian meals more often. And at number 1, and with a very comfortable margin, comes a bistrot, au vieux comptoir. Here you'll find impeccable, deeply flavorful, and truly soul-refreshing cuisine. As a reminder, both my best starter and my best dessert of the year came from this restaurant. And my main course, a bœuf bourguignon, wasn't far from claiming the top spot either. Add to that the most charming service you could hope for, and you have my clear winner for best restaurant of the year. And if you haven't seen them yet, or if you missed them when they were published, here are the 10 complete reviews of these great restaurants. Bonjour, and welcome back to Paris Top Tips. I'm Alain, and today we're heading to one of my favorite neighborhoods in Paris, South Pigalle, or Soapy as the locals call it. This area has become a real hotspot for food lovers, and I've found a place that's definitely worth your time, L'Evadé. Hidden on a quiet street just steps away from the buzz of Pigalle, this modern bistro promises bold flavors, beautiful plating, and that perfect Parisian vibe. So is it worth the hype? Let's find out. You'll find L'Evadé just a quick 3-minute walk from Saint-Georges metro station on line 12. Place Gustave Toulouse has no shortage of restaurants. But L'Evadé is, hands down, the best of the bunch. At L'Evadé, the à la carte menu is short and focused, exactly what you want from a quality bistro. The moment you walk in, the warm and elegant decor makes you feel right at home. They do have the menu in English, so don't hesitate to ask. It's a little pricier than your average Parisian bistro, so I'm hoping the food is worth it. It's nice to see wines by the glass right at the top of the list, but just like the food, the wine prices are on the pricier end. The restaurant applies a markup of 2 to 3 times on its wines, which is standard in France. So if the prices seem high, it's mainly because the wines themselves are of good quality. As usual, I'll show you the entire wine list. If that's of no interest to you, feel free to skip ahead to the next section, the food. I went with an excellent bottle of white Sancerre, which paired beautifully with both the starters and the main courses we had chosen. Focaccia, huile d'olive, herbe de Provence. Et houmous, poutargue et œufs de truite. These are our amuse-bouche, as we call the appetizers in French. My friend Patricia's starter, perfect egg, parsnip, Brussels sprouts, black truffle and pecan nuts. And for me, parsley ham terrine, duck foie gras, red onions and pickles. It was absolutely delightful. And this Sancerre is both smooth and fresh, with pure, well-defined fruit notes. For the main course, Patricia went with a risotto featuring black truffle, tetragon parmesan and chives. I know it might not look that impressive at first glance, but just wait a few seconds. See? With all those truffle shavings, it suddenly looks much more tempting, right? As for me, I had the slow-cooked lamb shoulder with Jerusalem artichokes, a delicious apple and onion chutney, cinnamon and sweet garlic to round it all out. The lamb was perfectly cooked, fork tender and meltingly soft with every bite. And that chutney, apple and onion, added just the right touch of sweetness. Pure pleasure. We dined late, 9:30 p.m., and by dessert time, the place had pretty much emptied out. It's a bistro, yes, but a particularly cozy and charming one. I was the only one to order dessert, and my pick was the passion fruit tart, paired with mango and pineapple sorbet. A refreshing and delicious finale to an excellent meal. A couple of sweet bites later, and the bill was on the table. For two people, it was a bit expensive, but if you exclude the €64 wine, the price is quite reasonable for a top-notch bistronomic restaurant in Paris. And here's a little insider tip: don't make the same mistake I did. Book in advance through thefork.com and you'll get up to 30% off the food. That would have knocked my bill down to €133 instead of €163. So this has been my Paris Top Tip review of L'Evadé in the great South Pigalle neighborhood. The restaurant offers excellent food, which was complemented this evening by a great Sancerre white that paired beautifully with the dishes. Plus, booking through the Fork can get you up to 30% off your food, which is a fantastic way to save. The wine list can indeed be a bit pricey, so make sure to get the discount on your food. Overall, it's a fantastic choice for anyone looking to enjoy high-quality bistronomic cuisine in a cozy and inviting setting. Le Trembleu is one of Paris's most iconic restaurants. Built inside the Gare de Lyon, it's a palace of Belle Époque grandeur. Chandeliers, gilded ceilings, painted murals. Honestly, few dining rooms in the world are this spectacular. But here is the real question. Does the food live up to the setting? Or is Le Trembleu just a tourist trap with a very expensive menu? Today, I'm putting it to the test. By the end of this video, you'll know how much a meal here costs and if the experience is worth it. Le Trembleu has a rather unusual setting for such a prestigious restaurant. It's located right inside the Gare de Lyon, one of the 6 major railway stations in Paris. Every day, thousands of travelers rush through here to catch trains to Lyon, the French Riviera, the Alps, or even Italy. And yet, hidden above the hustle and bustle of the station, is this grand dining room that feels like a world apart. No, not this one. The one just behind, at the top of the double staircase. Interestingly, Le Trembleu has almost exactly the same ratings on Google and TripAdvisor as La Closerie des Lilas, which I reviewed last week. So the big question is, will I enjoy it just as much as I did at La Closerie? Let's get inside and see. Until 2018, as a famous food critic once said, Le Trembleu was without a doubt the only restaurant where you can eat badly that's classified as a historic monument. But since 2018, Le Trembleu has gone through a real revival with Michel Rostand, a former 2 Michelin-starred chef. He's not the chef running the kitchen day to day, but he oversees the menu, which he completely redesigned. And ever since, people say Le Trembleu has been reborn. And as you can see, the prices have climbed almost as high as the ceilings in here. The good news is you can order wine by the glass. Though here, a single glass costs about the same as a bottle in your neighborhood Paris bistro. Grand Cru starts at €200 a bottle, because why not? The cheapest bottle here, a humble red Beaujolais for just 49 euros. And yes, a small bottle of water costs €8.50. Let's not spend too much time on it. Basically, nothing comes cheap in this restaurant. As a Parisian, I'm lucky to go to restaurants with beautiful decor quite often, but I have to admit, this one is simply stunning. For drinks, I went with a bottle of sparkling water and a glass of Haute Rosé de Provence. In another life, I actually worked for this company, and I can tell you their rosé is among the very best you'll find. I went for the PLM menu at €76, and for starters, I chose the pâté en croûte de campagne with plum and chutney. One of my subscribers actually asked me to start reviewing pâté en croûte. Well, this one was excellent, only beaten, in my humble opinion, by the one I had at the Au Vieux Comptoir Bistro in the 1st arrondissement. For me, bread and butter are a must at any restaurant. And even though this butter wasn't salty as I prefer, it came from an excellent brand. On this beautiful silver serving cart is the roasted leg of lamb that I ordered for my main course. It's served with Michel Rostan's gratin dauphinois, the authentic Alpine recipe, without eggs or cheese. One of my childhood favorites, it's a real little Madeleine de Proust for me. Carving the leg of lamb at Le Train Bleu is a real ceremonial affair. Let's have a look at it. What the waiter's adding here is called ail en chemise in French, cloves of garlic slow cooked in the juices of the roasting lamb. And now, let's smother it all in some delicious juicy sauce. Merci beaucoup. Merci. Time to enjoy. I'm already licking my lips. For those in the know, this gratin dauphinois is a bit like what mashed potatoes were to the late Joël Robuchon, a signature dish for Michel Rostand. If I was lucky enough to try Robuchon's mashed potatoes, well, now I can proudly say I've conquered Rostand's gratin dauphinois, and I loved every bite. This isn't fancy molecular cuisine. No, this is rustic countryside cooking. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it so irresistibly good. Waiting for my dessert, I get front row seats to a real show. The waiter is making crêpes Suzette at the next table. If you've never heard of it, crêpes Suzette are thin French pancakes, flambéed with orange liqueur, butter, sugar, and orange zest. It's as much a show at the table as it is a dessert, sweet, buttery, and bursting with citrus flavor. One thing's certain, they're fresh. I timed it, over 4 minutes of preparing and sizzling right at the table. And now for my dessert, a Neapolitan rum baba with citrus-infused rum and a big cloud of whipped cream. In France, ads have to say drink with moderation. My waiter? He clearly never got the memo. Once again, I was impressed. The baba was melting in your mouth tender, and the rum, pure joy. Moderation? Another day. Just before handing me the bill, my wonderful waiter poured me another glass of rum. Maybe he knew I was going to need it. 105 euros just for me. That's officially the most expensive meal I've had for these Paris reviews. Do I regret it? Not one bit. Sure, it's expensive. Way pricier than other good brasseries in Paris. But this isn't just a meal. It's a full-on experience. The food, the service, the decor, everything is over the top. So naturally, the prices are over the top too. So, final score, 17 out of 20. The decor, stunning. The food, very good. The service, friendly and attentive. The downside, definitely pricey. But for the full experience, it's totally worth it. Hi everyone! On paper, Le Bon Boc is exactly the sort of place I, as a local, would usually approach with suspicion. Proudly calling itself the oldest restaurant in Montmartre, it could easily sound like just another tourist trap. So when my friend Patricia suggested we go there, I had to look up a few reviews before even considering it. Founded in 1879 as the Brasserie du Plus Grand Boc, the place was originally one of those small neighborhood bistros where Montmartre's artisans and artists liked to gather. The decor was modest, except for the many paintings hanging on the walls, often left behind by artists to settle their tabs. The ratings on TripAdvisor and Google may look just okay at first glance, but there's more to the story. The restaurant was bought earlier this year, and since its reopening in June 2025, after a full renovation, it's been run by the same team that revitalized Le Petit Bouillon Pharamond, which was actually my top pick in my top 5 bouillon video. And here's the kicker. Since June 2025, its average TripAdvisor rating has jumped from 4.0 to 4.8. So, on this rainy October Saturday, here I am at 8 p.m, ready to enjoy what I hope will be a proper French bistro meal. Come with me. Inside, the new team set out to recreate a warm, welcoming spot where people can enjoy good food and good wine, just like they did here at the end of the 19th century. Just like in the early days, the walls are once again covered with paintings. And this one really stands out. It's a painting of the exact spot where I am standing now, only painted about 130 years ago. Let's take a seat and have a look at the menu. And yes, they do have an English version if you ask for it. Here, they're really focusing on the classic staples of French cuisine. Frog legs, bone marrow and pâté en croûte for starters, beef cheek, sausage with mashed potatoes and duck breast for mains, and baba au rhum or chocolate mousse for dessert. The wine list isn't very long, but it features carefully selected wines from small independent producers. My friend went for a white saumure, while I opted for a red Côte du Rhône. And we ordered a simple carafe of water, which arrived in a very charming little carafe. For my starter, I chose a half-roasted camembert with honey and thyme. If you've never tried it, I highly recommend it. It's an absolute delight. Patricia opted for the crispy prawns in absinthe sauce, and really enjoyed it. For my main course, I chose the magret de canard, or duck breast, served with a Suzette sauce, a flavorful blend of orange juice and Grand Marnier liqueur. The duck breast was cooked perfectly rosé, just the way I like it, and the sauce was absolutely exquisite. Patricia went for an all-time French classic that takes me straight back to my childhood. Saucisse purée, a simple pork sausage with mashed potatoes. Here, it's served exactly the way I loved it as a kid, with a little volcano of mashed potatoes and the sauce perfectly nestled in the center. Then, as I often do when it's on the menu, I went for the vanilla crème brûlée, one of my little guilty pleasures. I really love the crunchy caramelized sugar on top, perfectly paired with the smooth, creamy vanilla custard hiding beneath. My friend chose the cream puff, topped with caramelized crushed hazelnuts. Just look at the size of this marvel. Beyond the excellent food, Le Bon Boc just feels good. The atmosphere is warm and welcoming. On top of that, the playlist, entirely French, is fantastic. When we finished our meal, Our incredibly friendly waiter offered us a glass of Calvados. Such a thoughtful touch. The bill came to €105.40, so roughly €50 per person for an excellent meal in a wonderful atmosphere. All in all, Le Bon Boc is a true Montmartre gem. I give it a score of 16.9 out of 20. The food is authentically French and absolutely delicious. The service is perfectly friendly, the atmosphere is warm and inviting, and the French-only playlist adds a charming touch. The only downside is that the place can feel a bit dark, but that's a minor quibble compared to the overall experience. Welcome back to Paris Top Tips. 2 weeks ago, we went mythic at La Closerie des Lilas. Then last week, we went iconic with the lunch at Le Train Bleu. And today, we're going classic. Or should I say, the classic of classics. The very essence of the Parisian brasserie, La Coupole. La Coupole is right in the heart of Montparnasse, on Boulevard du Montparnasse, a neighborhood once at the center of Paris's artistic and literary life. On Google, La Coupole enjoys an excellent 4.4 rating, but on TripAdvisor, it's only 3.7. So, which one reflects reality? Let's find out together. When you step inside La Coupole, you're greeted by an enormous Art Deco dining room, with its soaring columns, painted pillars, and the lively buzz of a true Parisian brasserie. And like any proper Parisian brasserie, it also features a beautiful oyster bar. With my friend Patricia, we had a corner table, perfect for enjoying our meal, and, I'll admit, one of my secret pleasures, people watching. Since its opening, La Coupole has been the place to be, drawing legends from Picasso to Hemingway and from Edith Piaf to Ava Gardner. As in any true brasserie, you can enjoy magnificent seafood platters here. The other starters are as Parisian as it gets: egg mayonnaise, onion soup, foie gras. And for the mains, whether you're into sauerkraut, meats, or fish, there's always something to satisfy, even vegetarian options. There are plenty of desserts to choose from as well, but the true specialties are the profiterole and the crêpe Suzette. The beer prices are actually quite reasonable. And there's also an excellent selection of wines by the glass. If you prefer a full bottle, prices start at 32 euros, still very reasonable for a brasserie with such a strong reputation. We each enjoyed a glass of excellent white wine, a Sancerre for me and a Côte de Provence for her. For her starter, Patricia chose a sea bass tartare covered with Niçoise-style vegetables and olives. A starter that was fresh, briny and lightly tangy. I went for artichokes in a sour sauce, topped with hazelnuts and Parmigiano cheese. I love artichokes prepared this way. Then my friend chose a French poultry supreme in morel sauce, served with grilled macaroni and Parmigiano, an excellent European take on mac and cheese. I gave it a try myself. The morel sauce was absolutely perfect. That said, my choice, a roasted sea bass fillet with basil white butter and summer vegetables, was also an excellent dish. When there's an île flottante or a crème brûlée, I always go for one of these. This time, both were on offer, so I opted for the Bourbon Vanilla crème brûlée. Patricia opted for the red fruits pavlova, topped with strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, and a light mascarpone whipped cream. The lime shavings added a welcome touch of citrus to the dessert. We paid 133 euros for a full meal for two with wine. Not a bargain, but very reasonable for this quality and the restaurant's reputation. I love Art Deco, and this bar is a perfect example of the style. The service was perfect throughout the meal, and as we were leaving, our waiter, Mr. Zakazuli, wouldn't let us go without a dedicated La Coupole menu.
For all followers of Paris,
Top tips.
top tips, come to enjoy the best of Paris at La Coupole Paris. And I'm your host over here at La Coupole. My name is Zakazuli, and then you can listen to music at Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, because La Coupole is brasserie for artists. Come, and then maybe you're gonna find me like that. Enjoy.
So, La Coupole isn't just a restaurant, it's a living piece of Parisian history. With its stunning Art Deco dining room, fantastic food, lively atmosphere and impeccable service, it has everything you could wish for. Honestly, I couldn't find a single flaw. That's why I'm giving it a well-deserved 17 out of 20. Welcome back to Paris Top Tips. Today I'm going to share with you one of the best kept secrets of Parisian dining, something even many locals forget and that most tourists have absolutely no idea about. It's a simple tip, but it can completely transform the way you experience food in Paris. Ready? Here it is. If you want to eat at the best restaurants in Paris, even Michelin-starred ones, without spending a fortune, go there for lunch. Now you might be thinking, wait, how much difference can there really be between lunch and dinner? Well, a lot. And I'm not talking about a few euros. In some cases, the exact same restaurant can cost 2, 3, even 4 times more at night. Let me explain why and how to make the most of it. In France, and especially in Paris, most restaurants, from a neighborhood bistro to a 3-star Michelin palace, offers what's called a formule déjeuner, or lunch set menu. It's usually available only on weekdays, sometimes from Tuesday to Friday, and it's designed to give you a taste of the restaurant's cuisine at a much lower price. Typically, it's either a 2-course menu, starter and main, or main and dessert, or a 3-course menu, starter, main and dessert. The portions are sometimes slightly smaller and the choice is limited, but the quality and presentation are exactly the same as at dinner. You might wonder, why would a restaurant lower its prices at lunch? The reason is simple. Lunch is generally less busy. Even in Paris, people working nearby don't have time for a long gastronomic meal during the week. So to fill those tables, restaurants, including Michelin-starred ones, create special lunch menus. It's a win-win situation. They attract more customers during the quieter hours, and you get to experience fine dining for a fraction of the usual cost. At some 1-star restaurants, such as Restaurant Auguste here, a weekday lunch menu can start around 50 euros, while the dinner tasting menu might go for 120 euros or even 200 euros. Even at the most prestigious places, such as here my favorite 3-star restaurant in Paris, Le Pré-Catelan, lunch menus, when they exist, can easily save you hundreds of euros per person. The luncheon at Le Pré-Catelan costs 170 euros less than the evening Orsay menu and is even 240 euros cheaper than the signature Menu du Pré. Now you might ask, am I missing out on the real experience by going for lunch instead of dinner? Not really. Of course, the evening menus often include more courses, perhaps 7 or 10 instead of 3, and you'll have a wider choice à la carte. But the quality of the cooking, the ingredients, and the attention to detail are exactly the same. In fact, some food critics even say chefs are more focused at lunch, service is calmer, and the kitchen less rushed. And this tip doesn't only apply to high-end restaurants. Even your local bistro in Paris will almost always have a formule déjeuner. Sometimes it's 18 or 20 euros, and you'll get a great, hearty 2 or 3-course meal, wine not included, but still incredible value for Paris. So whether you're aiming for a casual Parisian lunch or a Michelin-starred experience, this simple shift, going at lunchtime, can save you a lot of money without sacrificing quality. Here are a few tips to make the most of it. Go on weekdays. Most lunch menus are only offered Monday to Friday. Check the restaurant's website. Look for Menu Déjeuner or Formule Midi. Reserve ahead. In some restaurants, even if it's lunch, good tables fill up fast. And finally, don't hesitate to ask politely, est-ce que vous avez une formule déjeuner when you walk into a place that looks interesting? For many travelers, Paris dining seems intimidating, fancy, expensive, exclusive. But the Formule Déjeuner completely changes that. It opens the door to the world of Parisian gastronomy, the chef, the creativity, the service, for a price that's often comparable to a regular dinner back home, or even less. It's one of those tips that locals take for granted, but for visitors, it's a total game changer. And to show you exactly how incredible this can be, in the next part of this video, I'll take you with me to one of Paris's most famous Michelin-starred restaurants, l'Atelier de Joël Robuchon, near the Champs-Élysées. Awarded Meilleur Ouvrier de France in 1976, Chef of the Year in 1987, and Chef of the Century in 1990, Joël Robuchon was the chef with the most Michelin stars in the world. He is considered to be one of the greatest chefs of all time. His first restaurant, Jamin, was named Best Restaurant in the World by the International Herald Tribune. He passed away in 2018, and Éric Bouchenoir, one of his closest collaborators and also a Meilleur Ouvrier de France, took over l'Atelier de Joël Robuchon, which still holds a Michelin star today. So this is where I'm having lunch with my daughter Charlotte, to show you that a weekday lunch menu in a Michelin-starred restaurant can cost just 55 euros, compared to the 220 euros for the signature dinner menu. The setting is quite unique. This luxury restaurant is actually located just beneath a small department store called Drugstore Publicis, right at the top of the Champs-Élysées. You have to admit, the setting is quite unusual for a Michelin-starred restaurant. You'd normally expect a more classic atmosphere, one that feels tailor-made for savoring haute cuisine. The concept of l'Atelier Robuchon is to showcase Robuchon's original gastronomy in a space where the cooking itself is fully visible and accessible to the eye. The guest is therefore seated at the counter on a stool that, I must say, is actually quite comfortable. The concept behind the lunch menus is simple. You can choose 3, 4 or 5 dishes from the à la carte selection, priced at 55, 75 or 95 euros respectively. On the starters side, they didn't have pâté en croûte that day, so it was replaced with foie gras. And the fish of the day was a cod fillet served with a vegetable and shiitake mushroom broth infused with ginger. If you order à la carte, whether for lunch or dinner, you have to choose between smaller portions to taste a greater variety of dishes, or standard portions. Here is the vegetarian menu at 110 euros. And the signature menu at 220 euros per person with all of Joël Robuchon's signature dishes. I didn't order any wine, so I can't show you the wine list. But I spoke with the sommelier and he told me they offer both great wines and some of his own discoveries at lower prices. For the appetizer, we had a foie gras royal with a morel reduction and a parmigiano emulsion. In fact, I had two. Charlotte didn't enjoy hers, but I absolutely loved mine. Then came Charlotte's foie gras, an excellent one, and she was impressed by the thickness of the slice. And my sea bream carpaccio, dressed with lemon and olive oil, was simply divine. Then came a second appetizer, following the starter, a pumpkin soup with goat cheese ravioli, parmesan emulsion, and pumpkin seeds. It was as excellent as the first one, and this time Charlotte enjoyed it. Then for her main course, my daughter, who had never tried beef tartare before, wanted to give it a go. Why not? It was served with a bit of well-seasoned lettuce heart, some French fries, and the famous purée de pommes de terre Robuchon. These mashed potatoes are made with 250 grams of butter and 25 centiliters of milk per kilo of potatoes. A dietitian's nightmare, but to me, and to thousands of critics, the best mashed potatoes in the world. Robuchon's signature puree also accompanied my main course, the cod fillet served in a vegetable, shiitake mushroom and ginger broth. A feast for the eyes as much as for the palate. Then came my dessert, a Mont Blanc, a cake made with chestnut cream and chantilly, served with a scoop of chestnut ice cream and a mandarin coulis. Just excellent, especially the ice cream. Charlotte had the pear and almond tart, one of Robuchon's favorite desserts, served with a scoop of Madagascar vanilla ice cream. After dessert came the mignardises, madeleine from Commercy with yuzu and soft marshmallows. Then came the bill, 122 euros for the two of us, including appetizers, starters, mains, desserts and mignardises, plus a large bottle of Evian water. A great meal in an excellent Michelin one-star restaurant. If you've seen my video about Le Train Bleu, which I absolutely loved, you might remember that my lunch there, just for me, cost 105 euros. So yes, this is living proof that weekday lunch menus can be an incredible bargain. L'Atelier Robuchon Étoile truly lives up to its legendary reputation. The setting is intimate and elegant, the food is absolutely top-notch, and the weekday lunch menu offers exceptional value for money, something you rarely find at this level of gastronomy. Sure, being in a basement may not be everyone's favorite setting, but once you are seated at the counter watching the chefs at work, you quickly forget about that. For me, this is an easy 17.1 out of 20, an experience that blends the excellence of haute cuisine with a surprisingly approachable price. So there you have it, one of the best kept secrets of Paris dining. If you want to enjoy Michelin-starred food or just fine French gastronomy without breaking the bank, go for a weekday lunch menu. From neighborhood bistros to 3-star institutions, many offer incredible lunch deals, often with the same chef, the same quality, and the same atmosphere, for a fraction of the dinner price. It's a smart, delicious way to experience Paris like a true insider. And as you've just seen, even at L'Atelier Robuchon, one of Paris's most famous restaurants, you can have a world-class meal for just 55 euros. Bonjour, and welcome back to Paris Top Tips. Today I'm crossing the Boulevard du Temple, right at the northeastern edge of the Marais, And just 200 meters from there, I'm taking you to what I would normally call a gem of a restaurant. But let's be honest, that word is completely overused on social media. So instead, let's say this place is a real golden nugget. After my recent video where I tested 3 famous entrecote restaurants in Paris, link up in the top right corner, I received quite a few comments telling me that this was far from the best meat you could find in Paris. And you know what? I totally agree. That's exactly why today we're going to Bidoche. Bidoche, which is French slang for meat, is not just a restaurant. It's both a butcher shop and a restaurant. You start exactly like in a traditional butcher's. You choose your cut of meat at the counter from an exceptional selection. Then they cook it for you, and you sit down to eat in the restaurant hidden just behind the butcher shop. If you want to see what truly great meat in Paris looks like, you're in the right place. Bidoche's credo is based on 3 core principles: offering the highest quality meat at acceptable prices, so no overpriced Wagyu, for example, maintaining a direct relationship with carefully selected breeders, and working exclusively with farming methods that fully align with the owner's values. Their philosophy is simple. They will never encourage people to eat more meat, but they firmly believe it's about eating better quality meat. And this is completely in line with the way I live today. I don't eat meat every day like I used to, but when I do, I'm happy to spend a little extra to make sure there's truly great meat on my plate. As you can see, all of their meats, lamb, pork, beef and poultry, are sourced exclusively from France. So let's go behind the butcher shop and discover the restaurant hidden behind it. The decor is quite basic, almost a bit classroom-like. For the owners, what truly matters is what's on the plate. And for me today, it's right there, on the first line of the mains. Meat sold by weight, chosen with the butcher. As an attractive lunch offer, you can enjoy a butcher-style minced beef steak with fries for just 18 euros. But today, I'll go for this, and I'll be waiting for the butcher to come to my table and take me back to choose my meat. Whether by the glass or by the bottle, the wine list is very solid. Especially when it comes to red wines, which pair perfectly with many of the meat dishes here. There's a great wine selection, but for this lunch, I prefer to go with this IPA beer.
Pour ce midi, donc vous allez avoir essentiellement aujourd'hui de la limousine et de la normande aussi en maturé.
D'accord.
Donc les viandes les plus fraîches reposent quand même déjà 30 jours en frigo, à l'abattoir. Donc on fait du Elbon essentiellement. Elbon maturé 60 jours. J'ai une côte de bœuf ici même. Je peux vous faire tous les steaks pour des portions individuelles. Là c'est plutôt les pièces à partager. Entrecôte maturée de la normande 60 jours également. Je peux vous faire dans du veau, c'est du veau limousin. Côte de veau ou escalope de veau, tous les pièces à griller, saucisserie si vous avez envie. Dans l'agneau, agneau baronnet du Limousin. Donc vous allez avoir tout ce qui est les côtes filets. Je peux vous faire également tout ce qui est côte d'agneau première, tranche de gigot. Et ensuite porc, également du Limousin, éleveur directement, porc plein air. Avec, donc je vais vous faire des côtes premières, des côtes secondes et chine. Voilà. Et également magret de canard qui viennent des Landes.
D'accord. Alors je pense que je vais partir sur le bœuf, en bœuf donc pour moi tout seul, mais je suis gros mangeur de bœuf, donc dites-moi ce que vous me conseillez dans tout ça. Peut-être une entrecôte ou...
Voilà, je préfère quand même aller sur une entrecôte malgré que ça soit gros mangeur, parce qu'une côte de bœuf
ça ferait beaucoup.
Oui, bien sûr. Donc par contre je vais avoir donc 60 jours maturés.
Très bien.
J'ai une belle normande. Voilà. Donc là on arrive sur une fin, bien sûr. Comme vous pouvez le voir. Est-ce que le morceau vous convient?
Il fait combien de grammes?
Je vais vous montrer ça tout de suite.
The total piece was a little over 500 grams, so I asked the butcher to cut it in half for me. Parfait. While the chef was cooking my meat, I started with an excellent plate of black pork chorizo from the Bigorre region in the south of France. Good as it was soon finished.
Sauce au poivre, sauce au bleu et sauce tartare.
Merci beaucoup. The side dishes are ready, and now all that's left is the main course. With a ribeye steak, you never remove the fat before cooking, because that fat is what gives the meat its exceptional flavor. This is what we call marbling. Cooked rare, just as I like it. Let's try the different sauces. I'm not trying the tartar sauce, because for me, it's not a sauce meant for red meat. The pepper sauce is honestly one of the best I've ever had. I just wish I knew how to make it myself, or at least that I could buy some to take home. The blue cheese sauce is good too, but I'll stick with the pepper sauce for the rest of my meat. Speaking of meat, someone once wrote in the comments under my entrecôte video, "Sorry friends, here is where America has you beat. Although your frites are far superior, for the same money, we can go to Longhorn or any decent mid-market steakhouse and get a ribeye that's far superior to yours." Honestly, I just wish this person could be here tasting this meat with me today. It's flavorful, tender and juicy. And with this pepper sauce, it's really heavenly. The country-style fries, cooked with the skin on, are excellent as well, just like the grilled giant shallot, but they quite modestly play a supporting role next to the meat. To finish my meal, I opted for a very refreshing lemon cream. At one of the entrecôte restaurants, your main course would cost between 26 and 30 euros. Here, it was 34 euros. But a comparison really stops there. The quality of the meat is on a completely different level. And while I do enjoy l'entrecôte sauce, the pepper sauce here is simply incomparable. To conclude, I'm rating this place 17.1 out of 20. The butcher restaurant concept works perfectly, the food is excellent, especially the meat, and the service is both knowledgeable and genuinely personalized. The restaurant space itself is quite uninspiring, but honestly, when what's on your plate is this good, it quickly becomes a secondary concern. If you're serious about meat and want quality, transparency, and real expertise, this is absolutely a place you should experience in Paris. Even after more than 3 years of reviewing restaurants in Paris, there are still a few places I've deliberately avoided. Brasserie Lippe was one of them. Despite its legendary status, Lippe only scores 3.3 out of 5 on TripAdvisor, which is objectively low for a Parisian institution, even if the 4.1 rating on Google paints a slightly more reassuring picture. I'll show you some of those reviews on screen, because they clearly explain why I was hesitant. I was simply afraid of being disappointed, especially after my experience at Le Grand Colbert, where the decor and history couldn't make up for what was, frankly, a very underwhelming plate. So yes, expectations were cautious. But this Monday, I happened to be passing by, it was lunchtime, and I was hungry. No planning, no reservation, no special expectations. So I thought, this is probably the best way to try Lippe. No mythology, no pressure, just a simple brasserie lunch. Before we sit down and look at what's actually on the plate today, let's take a short step back, because Brasserie Lippe is not just another Paris restaurant. It's a place that has been part of Parisian life for well over a century. And to understand why expectations here are so high, you need to know where Lippe comes from. Brasserie Lippe was founded in 1880 by Léonard Lippe, an Alsatian who originally opened a modest café serving beer and regional dishes. At the time, this part of Saint-Germain-des-Prés was far from the intellectual and literary hotspot it would later become. But over the decades, Lippe slowly turned into a meeting place for writers, journalists, politicians, and artists. By the early 20th century, it had already established its reputation as a serious brasserie, traditional food, no nonsense, and an atmosphere that didn't change with fashion. Lippe survived 2 world wars, 3 different republics, and changing dining trends, while keeping the same core identity. Classic Alsatian-inspired dishes, Parisian brasserie staples, and a strong sense of continuity. That continuity is probably Lippe's greatest strength, and also, perhaps, what makes it so difficult to judge today. On Boulevard Saint-Germain, facing the world-famous Café de Flore, you only have to turn around to find yourself right in front of Brasserie Lippe. Even though there were a few people waiting for a table, as I was dining alone, I was quickly shown to a table and handed a menu. The menu is of course in French. When I asked for an English version to film, I was given this QR code linking to the English menu online, which I've downloaded here for you. Brasserie Lip's menu immediately sets the tone. This is not a creative or modern brasserie. It is a deliberately traditional, conservative menu, and that is entirely intentional. Apart from the caviar, you won't find any surprises here. The menu is built almost exclusively around great French brasserie staples, with a strong Alsatian influence, reflecting the restaurant's origins. I think this menu clearly speaks to regular customers who come here knowing exactly what they want. It's not a discover and explore menu, it's a comfort menu. At the same time, because of Lip's location and fame, it also works as a safe choice for visitors looking for a textbook Parisian brasserie experience without any culinary risks. The same goes for the wine list. It's not extensive, but it focuses on classic appellations, carefully selected from renowned winemakers. A very nice wine list indeed, but as usual when I eat alone, I went for a draft beer. And of course, I asked for butter. With good bread in France, good butter, especially salted butter, is always a must. As a starter, I went for cervelas rémoulade. Cervelas is a traditional Alsatian or Swiss sausage, close to a Frankfurter in style, but with a deeper smoky flavor, and a firmer bite, thanks to its fat content and natural casing. And the rémoulade sauce is a classic French mayonnaise-based sauce, lightly mustardy and tangy, adding freshness to the richness of the cervelas. It's one of their highlighted starters for a reason. The meat is thick, rich in flavor, and the rémoulade brings balance and seasoning that make the dish work perfectly. I just couldn't help but mop up the remaining sauce with my bread. Then I went for the Tuesday-only daily special, blanquette de veau à l'ancienne. It's a classic French veal stew, where the meat is gently simmered in a white stock, then served with a velouté sauce enriched with cream and egg yolk. In service, it consistently ranks among the most beloved meat dishes in France, a true comfort classic of French cuisine. A blanquette de veau is usually served with rice à la créole, cooked in boiling water. For me, blanquette de veau is by far the best of all French stewed meat dishes, well ahead of bœuf bourguignon or pot-au-feu. It's clearly one of my guilty pleasures. It was excellent, and despite a very generous portion, I finished every bite with pure pleasure. Speaking of guilty pleasures, those of you who watch this channel regularly know I have a soft spot for Île Flottante. Well, this one was absolutely ginormous, and quite clearly the best I've had in 2025 so far. Unlike cheaper versions, they don't pour caramel sauce over the soft meringue. Instead, they melt caramel directly on top, which then sets and becomes beautifully crispy. Obviously, as you could see on the menu, Brasserie Lip is not a cheap brasserie. But you're paying for generous portions of very good quality food, so the 53 euros I paid for a full 3-course meal including a beer feels perfectly acceptable to me. All things considered, I'm rating my experience here 17.3 out of 20. At least in my case, Brasserie Lip delivered exactly what I expect from a great Parisian brasserie, and did so consistently from start to finish. The location in Saint-Germain is absolutely perfect, the brasserie atmosphere is exactly what you expect from such an institution, and most importantly, all 3 dishes I had were excellent. Sometimes reputations and online ratings don't tell the full story. Quite simply for me, I couldn't really find any downside to this experience. Tucked away on a small street in the Saint-Germain neighborhood that so many of you love, is this gem of a restaurant, Le Jardin Saint-Germain. And let me just say, this place isn't just well reviewed. It gets an exceptional 4.9 out of 5 on both Google and TripAdvisor, a score that very few restaurants in Paris ever reach. So, what makes Le Jardin so special? Well, before anything else, it's a story. A story of a meeting between Christian, who dreamt of opening his own restaurant, and Shan, a gifted chef who had been working for one of Paris' great luxury houses, but was ready to take a leap and create something personal. Together, they've crafted a place that's both intimate and refined, where heartfelt hospitality meets beautiful French cuisine. Now, let's take a look at what's on the menu, because this is where Chef Shan really shines. He's classically trained in French cuisine, but he spent many years working in the US, and you'll occasionally spot a gentle American touch in his dishes. The result? Elegant, flavorful plates that are rooted in tradition, but never stuck in the past. Among the standouts, the duck confit, crisp on the outside, meltingly tender inside, a perfect example of French comfort done right. A delicate sea bass as the fish of this day, cooked with finesse and plated beautifully. And be sure to leave room for dessert. To go with your meal, there's a short but well-curated wine list focused on quality over quantity. What's especially nice, every wine is available by the glass, so you can try different pairings throughout your meal, or simply enjoy a glass without having to commit to a full bottle. As a starter, since it was asparagus season, I couldn't resist the white and green asparagus, served with a light herb muslin sauce. For the main course, I went with the sea bass fillet, served with seasonable vegetables and the chef's sauce, a finely chopped mix of tomatoes, herbs and lemon, blended with olive oil. A fresh, tangy, slightly sour topping that really brightened the dish. The fish itself was cooked to perfection. Flaky, tender, and full of flavor. You could even eat the skin. It was thin, crisp, and beautifully done, adding just the right touch of texture. My friend chose the duck confit, which was served with Périgord potatoes, golden, crispy, and full of flavor. She was really impressed, especially because duck confit can often turn out dry, but here it was exactly the opposite, tender, juicy, and deeply flavorful. To finish my meal, I went for a classic thé gourmand. Or in my case, an herbal tea served with a trio of miniature desserts from that night's menu. I got to sample a key lime pie, a rich chocolate brownie, and a red berries assortment. Patricia opted for a full portion of this key lime pie. An excellent choice. Having spent many years working in Florida, Shan really knows how to make an authentic key lime pie, and many say it's the best you can find in Paris. Before I wrap up, I want to give a big shout out to the subscribers who recognized me and came to greet me that evening at Le Jardin Saint-Germain. It was such a lovely surprise to meet some of you in person. I really appreciate your kindness and support. After the meal, both Christian the owner and Shan the chef came over for a pleasant chat. Shan even brought us a bowl of his specially made popcorn, a little surprise treat that we really enjoyed. We paid just a little over 55 euros per person. That included one starter, 2 mains, 2 glasses of wines and 2 desserts. All in all, I'm giving Le Jardin Saint-Germain a solid 17.4 out of 20. The pros speak for themselves. A great location, friendly and efficient service, and overall excellent food, especially that perfect sea bass fillet. plus the thoughtful touch of popcorn offered at the end made the experience even more memorable. Honestly, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. If you've watched my other Paris restaurant reviews, you already know I'm a meat lover. The best entrecôte, the best bœuf bourguignon, the best tartare. When it comes to meat, you can count me in. But lately, some of you have been asking me for a good vegetarian or even vegan restaurant in Paris. So here we are. To find the best, I did my homework. I checked 12 different websites listing their top vegetarian restaurants in Paris. Then I gathered all these lists into an Excel spreadsheet. From that, I compiled 67 restaurant names, then narrowed it down to the 6 vegetarian restaurants that came up the most often. Then I looked at their TripAdvisor and Google Maps ratings and picked one of the top 3. And it just so happens, one is in one of my favorite neighborhoods, Le Marais. So if you please, follow me as I review Bonnard, a vegetarian restaurant in the heart of the 3rd arrondissement of Paris. Bonnard sits on the wonderful Rue des Gravilliers, a street that also home to the best chausson aux pommes in Paris at Saint-Boulangerie, one of the finest cocktail bars with Andy Walou, and a truly outstanding butcher shop, the Boucherie des Gravilliers. We've already seen that Bonnard scores really well on TripAdvisor and Google. It's actually the 2nd highest rated vegetarian restaurant in all of Paris. I came here with my friend Patricia, who was keen to try this vegetarian place. First impression, every dish has a long description, so there's plenty to read before ordering. My second impression, normally meat and seafood are what drive up prices in a restaurant, so I expected this place to be cheaper. Turns out I was mistaken. At first glance, the wine list clearly favors organic and biodynamic wines. And the great thing is, it showcases vintages from all over France. We both kept it reasonable, with just a glass of white wine. A Loire-Vallée, a Vouvray for Patricia, and a Rhône-Vallée Chardonnay for me. For my starter, I had a beautifully presented dish of sliced fennel accompanied by a fresh condiment and a tangy jelly. And Patricia went for the candied white onion with smoked scaramouza mousse, fried capers, and gingerbread powder. Quite a mouthful, isn't it? If you like fennel, this starter is a treat. Fresh, tangy, and a perfect way to kick off the meal. For my main course, I chose the zucchini duo, accompanied by ginger and candied lemon cream, a quinoa condiment, soy-seared shiitake mushrooms, and crispy quinoa. The second main course was chanterelles with parsley, served alongside roasted new potatoes, Roscoff onion confit with prunes, a mushroom and onion reduction, and a black garlic condiment. Those of you who know the channel know what this means. If I mop my plate, it's clearly very good. It would be a sin to leave any behind. Patricia's dish was also of a great quality. My dessert was a tasteful combination of raw and cooked nectarines, lavender milk, hazelnut and thyme crumble served on nectarine juice. Patricia didn't have dessert, as she was completely full. A positive sign, considering vegetarian restaurants in France sometimes serve small portions. Not so at Bonnard. In France we call the bill la douloureuse, the painful one. How painful was this one? The total came to €116.50, but they kindly treated us to the 2 glasses of wine, so we only paid €101.50. For such a great meal, that's a very reasonable price. I'm giving Bonnard an excellent 17.6 out of 20. The restaurant has a perfect location in the Marais, the vegetarian food is outstanding, the service was really friendly and attentive, and the atmosphere was very enjoyable. Honestly, there aren't really any downsides. Perhaps only that I feel vegetarian dishes could be a little cheaper, since there's no expensive meat or seafood. Even though I'll always be a meat and fish lover, I have to admit that with cuisine this good, I could definitely see myself eating vegetarian meals more often. What about you, my dear viewers? Please tell me in the comments below, and tell me if you want me to review more vegetarians or vegan restaurants. Paris, world capital of gastronomy, 125 Michelin-starred restaurants. But if you want to have a bite to eat in a typical Parisian restaurant, it's in a brasserie, a bistro, a bouillon that you have to go. On Paris Top Tips, every month I take you to one of those places where you can enjoy the great classics of French cuisine for not too much money. I've previously shared reviews of several outstanding Parisian restaurants, and you can access them through the link provided in the description below. Additionally, you'll discover more culinary experiences in my food and restaurants playlist. Nestled just 20 meters from Métro Châtelet, Au Vieux Comptoir epitomizes the essence of Parisian dining, a hidden treasure one would be eager to introduce to close friends. And today, I'm thrilled to introduce it to you, my growing audience of Paris enthusiasts on Paris Top Tips. For over 2 decades, this establishment, born from the passion of a bon vivant couple, has delighted gastronomes in the heart of Paris. To me, it stands as the perfect traditional Parisian bistro, a testament to culinary pleasure and timeless charm. Excellence without pretension, That's what a great bistro should aim at, and that's the guiding principle of my hosts tonight. In the kitchen, Chef Cyril Bourlois crafts dishes with devotion using the freshest seasonal ingredients, while in a dining room, Anne Bourlois takes care of guests with a warmth that feels like a personal invitation into her own home. It's a cozy ambience, reminiscent of an intimate gathering, albeit with the delightful buzz of a bustling bistro adding to its enchantment. The menu at Au Vieux Comptoir follows the rhythm of the seasons, offering an array of delectable dishes that reflects the natural cycle. When I went there end of April, I could indulge in truly French delights, such as a homemade sausage served with creamy aligot, a whole veal kidney with mustard cream, or a shoulder of lamb for two, paired with coconut beans. As for dessert, let me tell you the one I had was truly unparalleled, a masterpiece among Parisian restaurants. And, as befits a good bistro, the wine list is extensive, boasting over 100 references, including some prestigious selections. Yet, the true joy often lies in the simple pleasure of sharing delightful carafes of wine, be it white, rosé or red, with our cherished friends. This napkin, neatly tucked into a napkin ring, truly adds a touch of home to the dining experience. Undoubtedly, the ambience in a bistro is lively and bustling, yet it's a noise we quickly acclimate to, becoming an integral part of the venue's charm. And when the owner serves you with a smile, it elevates the entire experience. So let's talk about the experience. Don't you find this pâté en croûte with foie gras extremely appetizing? It's served with pickles that are so yummy, you'll find yourself reaching for them in a jar, again and again. Absolutely delightful. My friend took pan-fried razor clams with cherry tomatoes, garlic, chilies and smoked ham, and she said it was excellent too. Not much left, and it'll soon disappear. For main, she treated herself to the famous homemade sausage of Au Vieux Comptoir, crafted from a blend of pork and cheddar and served alongside delectable aligot, a flavorful combination of mashed potatoes and cheese. Served by the owner herself, I indulge in the bœuf bourguignon, a classic dish of tender beef stewed in burgundy red wine, complemented by a medley of mushrooms, pearl onions and savory bacon. And while it may seem unconventional to request grainy mustard alongside a dish already enhanced with wine sauce, don't hesitate to do so. The addition of mustard can work wonders, especially when paired with this kind of meat, tantalizing your taste buds with a delightful burst of flavor. Despite the burgundy wine-enriched sauce of my dish, I opted for a lighter red wine from the Loire, specifically a Mentu Salon, to accompany both of our meals. Yes, I know, my dessert doesn't seem appealing at first glance. Yet, even before I started tasting it, I knew it would be delicious. This organic rice pudding topped with salted butter caramel is absolutely divine, one of the best I've ever eaten in a Parisian restaurant. And the little fruit pastes that came with the bill too. Let's face it, the bill at Au Vieux Comptoir may be a bit higher compared to other Parisian bistros. However, that's the cost of impeccable, flavorful and soul-refreshing cuisine, along with the most charming service you'll find. So yes, my dear friends, I strongly recommend this restaurant.